Russia's throne looks Russian from far away. Up close, it becomes a family reunion from Germany. For nearly 2 centuries, Russia was ruled by emperors with German blood. They spoke Russian, wore Russian crowns, commanded Russian armies, and governed a vast Russian empire. But their dynasty came from a tiny northern German duchy. So how did the rulers of Europe's largest empire become, technically, German princes? The answer begins with a problem every monarchy feared: no heir. In the early 18th century, Russia was changing at terrifying speed. Peter the Great had built a new capital, modernized his army, and pushed Russia into Europe. He wanted Russia powerful, organized, and impossible to ignore. But Peter also created a dynastic mess. He changed the succession rules, allowing a ruler to choose an heir. Then he died without clearly settling the question. That was not ideal. For decades, Russian politics became a palace lottery. Guards, nobles, courtiers, and royal relatives competed behind closed doors. A ruler could gain the throne through inheritance, or marriage, or a well-timed military coup. Sometimes all 3. The Romanov dynasty still ruled Russia, but the direct male line was becoming dangerously thin. And that is where Germany entered the story. Not Germany as a unified country. That country did not exist yet. Instead, Central Europe was divided into hundreds of kingdoms, duchies, bishoprics, and miniature states. It was a political patchwork with crowns everywhere. Europe's royal families kept marrying across borders. A princess from one court might become queen in another. Her children could inherit claims in a third. To modernize, it looks bizarre. To royal families, it was normal business. Marriage was diplomacy with better clothing. Peter the Great had a daughter named Anna. Anna married Charles Frederick, Duke of Holstein-Gottorp. Holstein-Gottorp was a small German duchy near Denmark. It was not a giant power, it was not rich enough to dominate Europe, but it had one precious asset: a connection to the Russian throne. Anna and Charles had a son named Peter. This Peter grew up in Germany. He spoke German. He was raised in the Lutheran faith, and he had little reason to imagine Russia would become his world. Yet he was also Peter the Great's grandson. That single fact made him incredibly valuable. When Empress Elizabeth ruled Russia, she had no children. She needed an heir. She looked around the Romanov family tree. Then she chose her German nephew. Young Peter came to Russia and converted to Orthodoxy. He became Grand Duke Peter Fyodorovich. His name changed, his religion changed, his future changed completely. But his roots remained Holstein-Gottorp. Russia had found an heir. It had also imported the future dynasty. Then came another twist. Peter married a German princess named Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst. Sophie was not born powerful. Her family ruled another small German territory. Anhalt-Zerbst was so small that a major European map could almost miss it. But Sophie was intelligent, ambitious, and deeply adaptable. She arrived in Russia as a teenager. She learned Russian. She converted to Orthodoxy. She took the name Catherine. And she understood something Peter never fully understood. Russia was not a place you ruled casually. It was a massive empire with proud elites, powerful guards, and dangerous memories. Peter became emperor after Elizabeth died. His reign lasted only a few months. He admired Prussia, Russia's recent enemy. He withdrew Russia from a war against Prussia. He returned conquered territory. He made policies that upset nobles, guards, and clergy. Then his own wife moved. Catherine organized support among the imperial guards. Peter was removed. Soon afterward, he was dead. Catherine became Empress Catherine the Great, and suddenly, Russia was ruled by a German-born woman, not as a foreign occupier, not as a puppet, as a Russian autocrat. That distinction mattered enormously. Catherine did not try to turn Russia into a German province. She did the opposite. She learned the symbols of Russian power. She defended orthodoxy. She expanded the empire. She presented herself as Peter the Great's true successor, and she was very good at it. Under Catherine, Russia pushed south toward the Black Sea. It defeated the Ottoman Empire in major wars. It absorbed Crimea. It took large territories during the partitions of Poland. On the map, Russia spread west and south. The empire became stronger, larger, and more influential. Catherine's German birth became less important than her Russian achievements. That was the key. In monarchy, blood mattered, but power mattered more. If you won wars, rewarded elites, and kept the state functioning, people accepted surprising things. Catherine even invited German settlers into Russia. She wanted farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. Many settled along the Volga River. They kept elements of their language and culture for generations. So Russia was not merely ruled by Germans, it also became home to German communities. But the imperial family was becoming something more complicated. Catherine and Peter had a son, Paul. Paul became emperor after Catherine died. He was the son of a German father and German-born mother, yet he was raised as a Russian Grand Duke. He ruled Russia as Emperor Paul, and he changed the succession law again. This time he wanted clarity, no more palace lottery, no more ruler casually choosing an heir. The throne would pass through the male line, following strict rules. Paul wanted stability. Instead, he made the dynasty's German connection permanent. From Paul onward, Russia's emperors belonged to the House of Holstein-Gottorp-Romanov. That name tells the whole story. Romanov gave the dynasty Russian legitimacy. Holstein-Gottorp revealed its German branch. The Romanovs had not vanished exactly. They had merged into a wider European royal network. This was common across Europe. Britain had German kings from Hanover and later Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. The British royal family even changed its name during the First World War. Germany had become politically toxic, so Saxe-Coburg-Gotha became Windsor. Russia never made a similar rebrand, perhaps because the empire collapsed before anyone could try. But let's not jump ahead. Paul's son, Alexander, became emperor after Paul was assassinated. Yes, another Russian emperor was killed by his own elites. Russian succession remained dangerous, even with better paperwork. Alexander I would face the greatest military threat Europe had seen: Napoleon. When Napoleon invaded Russia, he expected a decisive campaign. Instead, he found distance, mud, cold, burned supplies, and a Russian army that kept retreating. Napoleon entered Moscow, but Moscow did not surrender the war. Russia's vast geography became a weapon. The French army began collapsing on the journey home. Then Russian forces pushed west. They entered Paris. Imagine the irony. A dynasty with German roots ruled the empire that helped defeat France. Then Russian troops marched through Germany on their way to Paris. Europe's royal family tree was not neat. It was a bowl of tangled wires. Alexander became one of Europe's most powerful monarchs. He helped shape the post-Napoleonic order. Russia was now a decisive European superpower. Yet its ruler belonged by ancestry to a German house. Did ordinary Russians care? Usually not in the way modern nationalists might expect. For most people, the emperor's religion, authority, and policies mattered more than distant genealogy. The Russian Empire was multinational itself. It included Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Poles, Finns, Baltic peoples, Caucasian peoples, Central Asians, Jews, Germans, and many others. Its rulers governed through empire, not modern ethnic nationalism. Still, the German connection never disappeared. Russian emperors often married German princesses. There was a practical reason. European royalty wanted marriages between equals. German courts had many suitable Protestant princesses from old dynasties. Russia wanted brides who could convert to Orthodoxy. German princesses were available. They were educated. They came with useful family connections. And, importantly, they did not bring the political danger of marrying into a rival superpower. A French bride could bring French influence. An Austrian bride could bring Austrian influence. A British bride could bring British influence. A minor German princess often came with less geopolitical baggage. She was royal enough to marry, but not powerful enough to dominate Russian policy. It was monarchy's version of hiring someone with a strong resume and no competing office. Over time, this created a strange pattern. The Russian imperial court spoke French. Its dynasty had German ancestry. Its state promoted Russian orthodoxy. Its empire ruled dozens of peoples. And its armies could decide Europe's future. Calling it simply Russian was true. Calling it simply German was also misleading. It was an empire assembled from many layers. The language of elite culture was French. The dynasty's branch was German. The political center was Russian. The religion of state was Orthodox. And the people were extraordinarily diverse. Then came Nicholas I. He was Paul's son and Alexander's younger brother. Nicholas believed in order, discipline, and autocracy. His formula was simple: orthodoxy, autocracy, nationality. Russia should be united under the emperor, the church, and a strong imperial identity. But this formula had a problem. The empire itself was too large and too diverse to fit neatly inside it. Poles resisted Russian rule. Peoples in the Caucasus resisted conquest. Intellectuals criticized censorship and autocracy. Serfs remained trapped in the system that increasingly looked outdated. Russia was powerful, but beneath the surface, the machinery was straining. Then, the Crimean War exposed the cracks. Russia fought Britain, France, the Ottoman Empire, and Sardinia. It was outmatched by more industrialized enemies. Its transport was weak, its weapons lagged behind, its administration moved slowly. The empire looked huge on a map, but size alone could not win modern war. Nicholas died during the conflict. His son, Alexander II, inherited a painful lesson. Russia needed reform. Alexander freed the serfs. Millions of people gained legal freedom. That was enormous. But freedom did not automatically mean land, wealth, or security. Peasants often received too little land. They carried heavy payments. Nobles lost old privileges. Radicals wanted more change. Conservatives wanted less. Russia had opened a door. Now everyone fought over what came through it. Alexander II survived several assassination attempts. Then, eventually, one succeeded. He was killed by revolutionaries in St. Petersburg. His son, Alexander III, responded with fear and repression. He distrusted liberal reforms. He strengthened police power. He promoted a harsher Russian nationalism. And here, the dynasty's German roots became politically awkward. The rulers were encouraging a more ethnic vision of Russia, yet their own family history was deeply European. Alexander III himself had a Danish wife. His son, Nicholas II, married Alex of Hesse. She was another German princess. Alex converted to Orthodoxy and became Alexandra Fyodorovna. She loved Nicholas. She took her role seriously. But she struggled to connect with much of Russian society. She was shy, private, and often distrusted. Then the First World War arrived, and suddenly, German ancestry was no longer a distant family detail. It became a political explosion. Russia was fighting Germany. German armies threatened the empire's western lands. Russian soldiers died in huge numbers. Cities faced shortages. The economy buckled. And the empress was German-born. Rumors spread that Alexandra secretly supported Germany. There was no solid evidence she was a German agent, but wartime paranoia does not need evidence. It needs fear. Nicholas was away with the army. Alexandra stayed in the capital. She relied heavily on a mystic healer, Grigory Rasputin. Rasputin appeared able to help their sick son, Alexei. That made him influential. It also made the imperial court look absurd. Russia was losing a modern industrial war, and the royal family seemed trapped in palace gossip. A German-born empress, a mysterious holy man, a distant emperor, a collapsing economy. It was a perfect recipe for disaster. By then, the dynasty's German connection was not the main cause of Russia's crisis, but it made the crisis easier to explain angrily. People wanted a villain. Foreign blood was an easy target. This was unfairly simple, yet revolutions thrive on simple stories. In the winter of 1917, food shortages and strikes rocked Petrograd. Soldiers were ordered to restore order. Many refused. Some joined the protesters. The army, the workers, and political leaders all began slipping from Nicholas's control. The emperor abdicated. The Russian monarchy ended. Just like that, a dynasty ruling for more than 3 centuries was gone. The final emperor of Russia was Nicholas II. He was culturally Russian. He was Orthodox. He ruled as Russian emperor. But his dynasty was Holstein-Gottorp-Romanov. His wife had been born in Germany, and during a war against Germany, those facts became symbols of a monarchy that felt disconnected. The imperial family was held under guard. Later, they were moved to Yekaterinburg. There, in the chaos of civil war, Nicholas, Alexandra, their children, and several servants were killed. It was a brutal end. Not just to a family, to an entire political world. The old European system of crowns, marriages, and inherited legitimacy was breaking apart. Germany lost its emperor. Austria-Hungary disappeared. Russia became Soviet. Across Europe, royal family trees suddenly mattered far less than armies, parties, factories, and mass politics. So why did Germans rule Russia? Because Russia did not choose rulers through nationality. It chose them through dynasty. A Russian empress needed an heir. Her nephew happened to be a German duke's son. He married a German princess. That princess became Catherine the Great. Their descendants created a new Romanov branch. Then Europe's royal marriage market kept supplying German brides. Over generations, the Russian throne became tied to German princely houses. But that does not mean Germany ruled Russia. The German states did not control the Russian Empire. Berlin did not appoint Russian emperors. German princes did not command Russia's government. The Russian emperors acted according to Russian imperial interests. Sometimes those interests even crushed German ambitions. The real secret is more interesting. Europe's monarchies were never as national as they appeared. They were family businesses operating across borders. A king could be born in one country, rule another, marry into a third, and fight relatives in a fourth. Russia was simply one of the most dramatic examples. Its rulers carried German ancestry. Its court loved French culture. Its state defended Orthodox tradition. Its empire stretched across Eurasia. And all of it rested on one fragile idea: that a family's bloodline could hold together millions of people. For a long time, it worked. Then war, inequality, mistrust, and revolution shattered the illusion. And the Russian throne revealed its strangest secret. It was never just Russian. It was European.